Hey, welcome into the On Texas Football Tuesday live stream, and we're ready to roll. Talk some Texas football for the next hour plus. And we appreciate everybody joining us along. Maybe watching some Texas baseball in LHN tonight. It's 1-1, second inning from over at UFCU Dish-Falk Field. Big crowd in the Yeti yard there in the back left field corner. They're watching some good baseball right now on a beautiful night and evening in Austin, Texas. It's 1-1 right now. We'll keep you posted on that. I'm Aaron Hogan. He is CJ Vogel. He is Rod Babers, and we're ready to roll. And it's going to be a fun hour, guys. We got NFL draft to talk about. CJ, you were a part of a conference call with Matt Miller from ESPN today, the NFL draft scout, kind of previewing the NFL draft. Certainly the combine is in, a week from Thursday. They'll fire up the combine in Indianapolis. So a lot of Longhorns are headed to Indy, which means a lot of Longhorn conversation about who's going to get drafted where, what round, and those kind of things. We'll get your insights from what Matt Miller, the NFL draft scout from ESPN, had to say. Rod's got a nice conversation, or at least a column from Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network. Also, some interesting thoughts from the director of the Reese's Senior Bowl about Tavondre Sweat and what the work he did at the Senior Bowl and why he shouldn't fall out of the first round. We'll talk about all that coming up. Also, we'll talk some CFP. The College Football Playoff is official now as far as the format in 2024. Got to get into that. We'd love to get your super chats and chats on that. Your thoughts on what was voted on unanimously today by the heads of the conferences, the heads of the four families, guys. The heads of the four families are out there as far as the mafia references would be, but they have made a decision. We'll talk about that coming up. Some recruiting news and a lot to do. Guys, how are you? You ready to roll on a Tuesday?
Ready to roll, man. Ready to do it.
Absolutely. We love Tuesdays out here.
I love Tuesdays. Hey, CJ, what about the recruiting news? What little housekeeping here? What's the latest on the recruiting front? Love to make sure our viewers are getting the very latest.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple notes that Jerry and I posted from earlier today. Obviously, the recruiting breakdown had a number of big tidbits in there and nuggets. One that we did not cover and one that came to us very late this afternoon was 2026 quarterback Will Griffin will be making it to campus on April 13th for a return visit. He was previously on campus January 20th for the junior day at Texas. The 6'4" quarterback out of Tampa, Florida, highly coveted quarterback, is making a return again, second trip in 3 months to Austin to see the Texas Longhorns and the staff. On top of that, new defensive line coach Kenny Baker extended his first offer out of Georgia today. That's Kevin Wynn, who dropped the top 10 yesterday, actually. So a little funky timing there, but Texas is now in the mix for Kevin Wynn. He said there's not necessarily a plan in place to visit, but he is going to give Coach Kenny Baker his due diligence in Texas a bit of a deeper look there. He is a 6'4", 320-pound interior defensive lineman from the state of Georgia. You know how those guys get down and how they ball. So interesting to see where Texas is going to be more involved now that Kenny Baker's kind of getting his feet situated a little bit with the Texas Longhorns and on staff. And then I was out at Pflugerville Weiss earlier today checking out the 2026 offensive lineman J.J. Mays. He has very high remarks for the Texas Longhorns. Loves Kyle Flood. Dropped an article on him just now on TexasFootball.com. And for those wondering about Adrian Wilson, the 25 wide receiver committed to Oregon, you can save those chats because I don't believe Texas will be getting involved at the moment moving forward. So a lot going on. Pflugerville Weiss has a lot of big talent coming up, and it's exciting to see this area start to prosper a little bit more with these big D1 Power 5 guys, and they're going to have a number of them coming through the doors. Up in Pflugerville.
Yeah, right up that I-30 tollway, right up I-35 in between there. Good stuff with CJ. Hey, on the quarterback, the kid from Tampa, does it feel like Sark is – it's been the pattern. They zero in on one target per class. Is that kind of the thing as far as that position goes, and just get ahead of it and have a 26 guy? KJ Lacey's 25, obviously Trey Owens in 24, Arch Manning 23. Is that kind of the plan? Kind of a one recruit per cycle?
Yeah, that has been the plan, and it has been, kind of a wait each cycle to see where that first offer would go. Surprisingly, Texas has offered 3 quarterbacks in the 26 class right now. The first was Jared Curtis, the number 1 quarterback in the country. He's out of Nashville, Tennessee. It looks like he's actually trending towards Georgia at the moment. That same evening, Texas extended an offer to Troy Hunn, a 6'4" quarterback out of Mission Hills, California. So right now it looks like Texas will be going either to Florida or to California to grab their 26 quarterback, whether it be Will Griffin or Troy Hun. Both of them 6'4", both of them can sling the rock a little bit. Troy Hun has been on campus a number of times, used to work, or I guess currently still does work with Malik Murphy's quarterback trainer, Danny Hernandez, one of the quarterback gurus who has 4 or 5, highly rated 26 quarterbacks as well out in the West Coast. He will be making a trip back to Texas this spring. A date has yet to be finalized, but we are expecting him to be on campus. I actually believe he mentioned the spring game as his first day to get back to Austin. So look for Will Griffin and Troy Hun to be one of the Texas quarterbacks in the 26 cycle. I would expect that commitment to come from one of them.
Interesting. Rod, thoughts on that? It's pretty clear Sark's trying to position this program as the program for the top quarterback in the country, right? There's just keep them coming. Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, just keep on rolling in here, and you're going to get developed. And, obviously if Quinn Ewers would have a good year, there's going to be talk about him being the 1-1 in April of 2025. And you can see kind of how Sark's moving here. Let's be the place you come if you're the top quarterback in the country.
Yeah, and it's going to start with Quinn, right? I mean, the goal for Quinn is to be the top quarterback taken in this draft class. Last time Texas had even a quarterback to be in that conversation was Vince Young. Last time Texas had that kind of quarterback, that caliber of a quarterback. So it does mean a lot that now Quinn's in that conversation. You want to start that pipeline. Quinn's, right now in a prime position to be the top quarterback taken. And if you're in a conversation to be the top quarterback taken in the 2025 draft, then that would mean that you got a chance to be 1-1. And that he's got to take a leap. Now he's got to take a huge leap in a lot of different areas, but he's got that kind of potential there. Nobody denies that. And hopefully this is the year where you see Quinn kind of take that type of a leap. And you should start that pipeline at quarterback where, right after him, you got Arch Manning, and then after him, whoever it may be, then you start to get that, like you're talking about, that reputation where all the best quarterbacks want to come there because they understand that it's the next step for them to accomplish their NFL dreams. And Sark's got that reputation as a quarterback guru already. Now he's trying to make Texas the QB destination, which makes sense. I mean, one of the, really kind of ironic, kind of Shakespearean ironies of the downfall of Mac Brown was that at the time that the program started to disintegrate, if you will, and it started to have the fall from grace, the state of Texas became the quarterback mecca. It became the most fertile recruiting ground in the country for quarterbacks. It overtook California at the time. But the tragedy was that Texas couldn't find one of those first round elite level quarterbacks, although they were all around them in the state of Texas. And that was kind of the irony of it, with Sark now, obviously, doing what he's doing now and getting Texas to the point where you talk about having that reputation where all the best quarterbacks want to be a quarterback, it's the quarterback utopia, right? You kind of stockpile quarterbacks and you got the pipeline to the NFL and you're working with a quarterback guru, stamp of approval by the Mannings. I think it's quite a leap from where I think ultimately the fall from grace for Texas started, which was they couldn't find an elite quarterback, even though the state of Texas was producing more than any other state, and you were at the marquee university in the state of Texas. It was tragic, man. Tragic.
Yeah. I mean, names like Andrew Luck and Johnny Manziel and RG3 and on. Matt Stafford, the list went on. We covered those obviously. And yeah, I mean, and CJ, to that point, I mean, Rod just said, I think, an interesting phrase, the Manning stamp. I mean, you can't underestimate when, for a young quarterback and their family thinking, where do I want to send my young top prospect? If it's good enough for the Mannings, and obviously we'll see the evolution of Arch beyond, as Rod said, Quinn's development this year. But man, if it's good enough for the first family of football, that's a place I should consider. That might be a coach I should want to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really started to magnify a little bit more following Quinn's commitment, right? He was that number one quarterback in the country to begin things. It's like, all right, he's buying into Steve Sarkisian's motive as well. And now the Manning family's following suit. What's kind of that deal? It's that larger domino there that you now get to hear about more and more when, Peyton and Eli are talked about it. Archie will chime in every now and then. That interview from Radio Row at the Super Bowl really sticks with me because Eli sits there and says, I mean, he chose to play for Steve Sarkisian. Why would he ever transfer without ever getting the opportunity to play for the guy that he chose to commit for? We, I guess I say we at the Manning family sat there and went through the pros and cons of literally every coach and program in the country and still came away with Steve Sarkisian as the guy that they wanted to play for, giving him his opportunity to sit back, develop, and then step in when fully ready. That's been a learning curve for him. Obviously, he wants to get on the field, but it's something that he's bought into. And regardless of where and what you see plastered throughout social media and headlines and whatever it is on the internet this offseason, Arch Manning's not going anywhere. He's going to be sticking around for his time at Texas before it's time for him to be taking his snaps.
Yeah, he's a unique. I mean, you understand the national media. They, obviously you're not going to sit for 2 years if you're Arch Manning. Everybody else is transferring, but he's a different kid, different recruit for sure, and coming in a different recruiting process. He's not on social media. He's here to enjoy the college life and the college experience in Austin, and as you say, play for Coach Sark and AJ Milwee. Hey, Rod, on the defensive tackle from Georgia, I know when Kenny Baker was hired, we talked about here on the Longhorn Livestream on Texas Football, the ties to Georgia. When you're Sark and you're kind of looking for your next D-line coach, and that fertile Atlanta metro and that fertile Georgia recruiting base, to bring in a heavy hitter that reportedly is really good on the recruiting trail, really gets after it like Kenny Baker, and a developer of players. You're already seeing, to CJ's point, you've already got an offer out to a kid out of the state of Georgia trying to reach into that fertile state and bring in some top talent.
Yeah, I mean, Sark is, he's building the coaching staff with a national recruiting footprint, right? Guys with a lot of ties to the West Coast. You got guys ties to Louisiana, ties to the Deep South, Kenny Baker being the latest. And, I've done the research. I mean, I thought that DFW was kind of my starting point. I thought DFW might be the most fertile recruiting ground for NFL draftable prospects in the country. Turns out I was wrong. It was second behind Atlanta and the Atlanta metro area. When I did my research, there's no metro area in the country producing more NFL draftable prospects than that Atlanta area. And by the way, that's the heart of the SEC. That is it. So I think Sark also wants to make a little bit of a statement with some guys with some ties to that area, to short choice, and now Kenny Baker, that, hey, he can reach into the heart of the SEC and start pulling out some of the best players. Now, he's already done that in Louisiana, already done that in Florida, already done that in Alabama. I think he wants to start doing it in Atlanta. And, Sark's smart, man. He understands where the best kind of fertile recruiting pools of talent are. And I do think that's why he wants a more nationalized footprint, specifically an SEC footprint. Even with Texas recruiting and on the Texas roster, it's still always going to be mostly Texas players, but more and more, why waste having the SEC brand? Now that you have the SEC brand, one of the knocks against Texas, right? Remember I said it's hard to negatively recruit against Texas. One of the big knocks was, man, you play in the Big 12. I don't know if I want to go play in the Big 12, man. I want to play in the SEC. I want to play where most of the NFL players come from. I want to play where the best football play is being played. Now Texas has that pitch. And once again, why not start recruiting the SEC? If you go look at NFL players per capita, it's all SEC schools. It's all SEC states. I mean, it's Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. I mean, SEC country per capita, those SEC states, they produce NFL talent at a much higher rate than even the big states like Texas, California, and Florida. And the truth is now Georgia has surpassed California. All right. The big three is no longer Texas, Florida, and California. No. It's Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Georgia has surpassed California in producing a high-level NFL talent. It happened out of nowhere. You can usually kind of predict these things through population booms and migration patterns. And honestly, you go back and kind of look about 10 years ago, lots of, population booms, migration patterns in places like Georgia, in Arizona. Look at Arizona now producing high-level NFL talent. All tracks to people moving to those places. I mean, if you got smart enough people on your staff, they can tell you where the booms are. And that's why Sark said, hey, man, we treat Houston, East Texas to Louisiana, that's all one damn area of recruiting. That's all one region to us now, because what's the point in breaking it up? It's so much damn talent in H-Tech. Houston, by the way, Houston is still top 6. All right, metro areas producing NFL talent in the country. So you really got to concentrate on DFW, Houston, Beast, Texas, on your way to Louisiana per capita. It's always in the top 3 to 5. And then go ahead and just jump into SEC country, baby. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. And you got the clout to do it, and you got the SEC title to do it. So it just makes sense. I love what Sark's doing in recruiting, man. It makes perfect sense to me. You can't dominate Texas no more. Nobody will ever rule that Iron Throne. There's no point in wasting your resources trying to do it. Just pick the right pockets of talent.
Yeah. Take the top players from Dallas, Houston, and then obviously locally here in the 5-1-2, as you just talked about with Pflugerville, Weiss, and then cherry pick the top pools. And it looks like CJ, you've covered this a long time. Sark is building his staff, as Rod says. It can go East Coast to West Coast, deep South, deep into Arizona. This is a really, there's a bigger picture thought to this. Sark's just not throwing darts at this deal.
No, absolutely not. And you can look at the last 2 classes really as to the best example of where Texas wants to get these top tier guys. You look at where Texas has targeted most of their defensive linemen and defensive backs in recent cycles. That'll tell you the whole picture right there. As you said, you'll still be recruiting Texas heavily. Like, this is your home ground. You will still be in the best position to go after the top players in the state of Texas. We saw it this past year with an Alex January, a Kobe Black, Xavier Phil-Sami. Those are the pieces that you want to continue Texas to recruit in their backyard. But then you start looking across the country. Texas dipped into Arizona, Louisiana, and Florida for defensive backs. Mm-hmm. For defensive tackles, I mean, they were after a guy in Louisiana. They pursued Alex Foster through the whistle from Mississippi. They had another commitment and signee in Florida as well. Those are all the deep South. Those same guys are going to be in, or I guess those same areas are still going to be who you hear Texas pursuing further on in this SEC era of Longhorn football. And we're seeing it now with Coach Baker extending his first offer out of state to Kevin Wynn in Georgia. So it's going to be a continual trend, and you're going to see Texas continue on the offensive side of the ball to recruit quarterbacks out of California, wide receivers out of California, dipping into Florida as well. But at the same time, they're going to be looking after finding the best talent they can in state, and then finding the complementary pieces surrounding them outside of the state, and pursuing just about anybody on a national scale that reciprocates that interest.
Yeah, obviously Brandon Harris, now the general manager of Texas Football Inc. And he's working working in tandem to recruit coast to coast. And you throw Brandon Baker from Modern Day, a 5-star tackle, into this recruiting class, and already have a transfer portal player from Arizona by way of UCLA. So it's west to coast, it's deep south, it's east, all the way into Florida, which is what you like if you're a Texas fan. And as Rod said, and CJ confirmed, I mean, taking advantage of this SEC brand while owning the top players in Texas, without a doubt. All right, guys, good stuff right there on the recruiting front, the recruiting side of things. I want to get into the college football playoff because, by the way, update from the dish, it's 3-1 Texas now. Longhorns have rallied for some to take the lead over Houston Christian. Houston Christian, coached by and managed by the great Lance Berkman, the former Austinite back in the day, also Rice Owl. Grew up in New Braunfels, but Houston Christian's head coach is Lance Berkman. He's brought his team in. Of course, great college player at Rice, and with the Houston Astros, they're playing the Longhorns tonight in a good baseball game. Real quick, CJ, before we flip to the CFP, your thoughts on that first weekend? The 2 out of 3 over San Diego. I came in and told Rod, I thought San Diego's a really good ball club. Play great defense. That's going to be a team that wins a lot of ball games in the West Coast Conference. That was a really good opener, and to get 2 out of 3 in that one, lose an extra innings game, I thought you saw a lot of promise from the Texas baseball team in the first 3 ball games.
Yeah, I did too, and I thought there were 2 takeaways that I had. Texas got off to kind of slow starts in all 3 games. You saw it again tonight with a 1-0 deficit. It's nothing crazy. You can't really make a whole lot of judgment off of the first 4 games of the year, but if that's a trend that continues, Texas is going to have to show a lot of fight throughout the duration of the season. But I also wanted to touch on, there was a lot of youth. I think there were 7 freshmen that got at bats this past weekend, 7 guys that got on the mound, whatever it might have been. I saw a tweet that had 7 true freshmen saw playing time against San Diego. That's a lot, especially to start a season. So there's going to be a lot of youth. There's going to be a lot of a learning curve moving forward. So we're going to see a lot of patience again this year. And I urge Texas fans to take that patient approach with this baseball team, because it is talented. But again, there's a lot of new faces, a lot of guys into those first kind of couple big playing moments for them. Not everybody can be around like Porter Brown and Peyton Powell. Obviously, those guys are going to be tasked with leading the charge. But I thought it was a solid showing, and I'm excited for it because I think that's a pretty solid squad that they got right now. It's all about piecing together the bullpen and timely hitting. As you know, those moments will come as the season continues.
Jared Thomas just doubled, and that was my takeaway was that top of the order. The Jared Thomas, Peyton Powell, Jalen Flores, those guys were all over the bases, scored a ton of runs, and I think that's going to be an igniter at the top. And as the young guys come along, really like this team. Rod and I have talked about it, CJ, that these games here with Houston Christian, Cal Poly next weekend or this weekend, and then St. John's on Tuesday. Realize this, from March 1st to March 10th, we'll find out a lot about this Longhorn team. They're going to play a 3-game series in Houston against LSU, Texas State, and Vanderbilt. They're going to come home for Texas A&M, and then they're going to Lubbock to play 3 with Texas Tech over a 10-day period. They're going to play. Yeah, they're going to find out a lot because you're going to only play one true home game, and you're going to be playing some of the top talent and top coaches in college baseball when you're playing the defending national champs down in Houston at Minute Maid Park in that great classic. I've heard that game is almost sold out. As far as tickets go for that game, which should be a great Friday night. And then Texas State with Coach Trout, and Sunday with Vanderbilt. Then back home for an Aggie game that's just going to be, if the weather's good, that's going to be off the chain as far as crowd and fun, and looking forward to the SEC. And then, to Lubbock to start conference play very early as far as the calendar goes. That's an interesting, 10-day stretch. We'll know a lot. They really need to learn a lot about this ball club here in these first couple of series to figure out, because it's gonna come at you like a fire hose, Rod. Right after you get through these first couple series, you're gonna be playing the best teams in the country, or some of them.
There's no doubt about it, but you better get used to it because in the SEC, hey, you get it. The football's gonna take it up a notch. We know that the level of competition. It's the best football conference, but hell, baseball, from what I can gather, that's gonna be a step up too for Texas baseball. And Texas baseball is a blue blood. There's no doubt about it. But man, the SEC, they got a different level of Texas. They got a different level of baseball and different level of home field advantage too that Texas wants to get used to.
Well, that's where that Yeti Yard came from. They're trying to match Ole Miss and Mississippi State, LSU, and trying to create that home field advantage without a doubt. And looking forward to this baseball team evolving this year. All right, guys, college football playoff. It came out late in our show today, Rod, on the Horn. I mean, not surprising, but again, I think surprising how quickly this came out here in late February. The College Football Board of Managers unanimously agreed and revised the 12-team playoff format to a 5+7. This was expected coming out of Irving, Texas, because the dissolving of the Pac-12 conference. This was going to be a 6-6 model where the Power 5 conference champions would get in, and then you'd have one at large or one of the Group of 5 conferences champion, the highest ranked Group of 5 team, to give you 6. Well, obviously, with the Pac-12 disappearing and dissolving, it's now a 5-7. So you'll have the Power 4, SEC, Big 10, ACC, and Big 12 champion. And the interesting part to me, guys, the highest ranked 4 conference champions will get the buys. They will get the first week off. So whether you're, the undefeated conference champion, or let's go back to last year where what if Iowa had upset Michigan or Oklahoma State had beaten Texas? Under this rule, as I read it, the winner of that, wherever they were ranked, would get a week off, essentially. Even if they were a 3 or 4 loss team, but they played in the championship game of their conference, so the Power 4, they're going to get a bye week. And we can debate whether that's a good thing or bad, but they're going to get off. So that the highest ranked 4 conference champions bye. That's the qualification for that. And then 5 through 12 will be the obviously outside the Power 4 conference champion, and then 7 other at-large teams, and then seeded by the committee 5 through 12. Guys, your thoughts on this format that's been adopted as of today?
I'll say this, Brett Yormark, well done, because he got the Big 12. Basically he kept their power status then. Is basically what this kind of tells me. They didn't because we were, obviously the Pac-12 dissolved, and he won that competition between the Pac-12 and the Big 12. But man, the fact that the Big 12 champion will still get a guaranteed spot, to me says that Brett Yormark did a good job of being able to salvage the Big 12's power status. That's number one for me. And it matters if you win your conference championship. I mean, it matters. And, basically all teams going into the playoff will be rested. If you lose your conference championship, there's still if you're a Power 5 or a Power 4, I should say, conference, you're still probably going to get in. I mean, there's a good chance, unless you did get blown out or you were really a low-ranked team. If you were in the SEC, there's a good chance the SEC's runner-up is still going to get into the college football playoff. Big Ten's runner-up will probably still get into the college football playoff. Not sure about the ACC, not sure about the Big 12, but that's why I think the SEC is fine with giving a guaranteed slot to the power whatever conference champions, and I don't mind that at all. I mean, if Oklahoma State in this situation, though, if they had beaten Texas last year, then they would have got a guaranteed bye going into the playoff. Texas still would have got in though to the playoff. So honestly, I really got no problem with it. I kind of like the structure. It's cool. Everybody still gets in that needs to be in.
Well, and the
that's kind of my thing is, if you win the conference championship, more times than not, you're a good football team. And in this era of college football where there's 12 teams that make the playoff, more times than not, you're worthy of a spot in that group anyways. And so you could talk about the one-off anomalies in Oklahoma State and Iowa last year. How often do they actually win their college football championship? Not too often. Yeah. I don't think it'll pose that big of a problem in this new era of college football. To me, it's the committee staying firm on winning your conference championship matters. And we saw that this past year when the 4 conference champions made the college football playoff. Sorry, Florida State. I'm not going to get into that, but you were the 5th conference championship, and while you were undefeated, your team probably wouldn't have put up a competitive fight in the college football playoff. So that's been the consistent theme for me when evaluating how the committee goes about making decisions on entries, on the playoff, on the future of the sport. Winning your conference championship matters, and I liked that because it's very easy, in college basketball tournaments, in baseball tournaments too. There's that kind of mantra where if you go deep in your college tournament, you win it. Odds are you don't make a deep run in the postseason tournament of your sport. That's kind of been looked at as an Achilles heel. If you win your tournament in the basketball or baseball seasons, you're now sitting back there like, oh, well, we just played 3 or 4 more games than, the other team down the road, and now there's the same seed as us going into the big tournament. That's not the case, and that's kind of the approach that the college football committee is taking right now to ensure that those games still matter rather than looking at it as an extended bye in which you're no longer going to be punished for not winning that game and being looked at it as a true bye itself. So I like that a lot. I think that's the best case for the sport as well. And like you said, Rod, I really thought that's a great negotiating tactic by not only Brett Yormark, but the ACC as well, who they still have more star power there, but top to bottom, I don't think that's a very deep conference when it comes to, the overall consistency of play and production on the field out on the East as what I think we might see in the Big 12.
I think that's a good point. I mean, winning your conference matters. I also think that can have a domino and a second and third level effect that you can schedule tougher games in September. We can get some of those great intersectional matchups early, and you can lose those games and still come back and, win your conference and still get not just in, but a top 4 seed automatic bye. So you'll get some better matchups in September in the non-con, I think. And to your point, Rod, about Brett Yormark, I mean, to vanquish the Pac-12, and of course, George Kliavkoff and the Pac-12 have parted ways as of this weekend. And that was only a matter of time. I mean, as slow-footed and lacking, whatever the adjectives are for the Pac-12, the Big 12 swooped in. They did and I give I know Texas is leaving the Big 12, but the presidents were aggressive. The president at Texas Tech, the president at TCU, they were aggressive, saying, "Guys, who cares about Texas? We can't fix this now. We can be mad at them all we want. We've got to be aggressive, or we're going to be gone." Who among us didn't think when Texas and Oklahoma left for the Big 12 for the SEC, that we all thought the remaining Big 12 was over. They were gonna dissolve into the whatever group of 5 group, and no one thought the Pac-12 would be the group that fell apart. I know they talked about a partnership and a merger at one point, which the Pac-12 was slow to react to. But you're right, totally vanquished the Pac-12. They're gone. And how about this, Rod and CJ? The Big 12 now is they have a guaranteed top 4 spot every year.
Yep.
And Notre Dame doesn't. Notre Dame does not. Notre Dame's not in a conference. So if Notre Dame goes 12-0, the best they can do is 5 under this rule.
And I've got some words to say about Notre Dame real quick, because this has been something that's been on my mind for a while. Notre Dame, it's time to get with the times. It's time to adopt the iPhone, throw away your BlackBerry. It's time to get a laptop, throw away, the typewriter. Join college football like the rest of us and get in a conference. You talk about realignment. It sucks that you lose a lot of tradition, a lot of rivalries. Every team that has realigned has had to go through this. Washington and Washington State, Texas and Texas A&M, they're back now. Texas is also losing a number of teams that they don't get to play anymore. There are a ton of rivalries that don't get to continue because of realignment, but it's time. This is the era of college football where you either jump in the boat or you get left behind. And the committee's saying right now, we're not going to leave a spot out here for you, Notre Dame. And for good reason, because when Notre Dame is on these big stages, they don't perform well. And they haven't performed well for a while. This isn't Rudy's Notre Dame. This isn't the Notre Dame of the past. That is, a reason why they're sitting up across in the national all-time wins leading board, sitting there pretty with their golden helmets, looking down at a number of teams. That's not Notre Dame that we're seeing today. Since 2000, Notre Dame is 0-9 in BCS, New Year's Six, and college football playoff bowl games.
Damn.
And they've been outscored by 177 points in those games. That's 20 points a game on the biggest stages college football has in the last 25 years. Like, this isn't, they shouldn't be given this kind of pass that many teams don't even have the opportunity to get. Right now, Notre Dame, again, has finished top 10 in the final poll in 6 years since 2000. They're 0-6 in the bowl game that's followed the season.
Wow.
It's not who they were, and they shouldn't be given that pass. So it's time to get the conference, and it's time to get up to the speed of college football. Otherwise, you might be sitting back at the Big 12 saying, well, y'all got room for us?
Yeah, well, think about that. I mean, Rod, as I said, the Big 12 champion, whether it's Oklahoma State or Texas Tech or TCU or whoever the heck is going to win it, they're guaranteed a bye, and they're guaranteed a top 4 spot. Notre Dame is not, which means as good as Notre Dame can be, to CJ's point of their lack of success, to win a national championship, they have to win 4 games, guaranteed. They have to. I mean, that's their challenge now, and it's almost, to me, because this was voted on by the committee, the whatever they call them, the commissioners or the governors of all these leagues. They're trying to force Notre Dame to do exactly what CJ just said and get in a conference. Like, you can't be on this island by yourself in this new landscape. It's not going to work.
Yeah, because basically at one point, as we kind of look at the changing landscape, we know there's going to be more of a separation between the have and the have-nots at some point. We just don't know how it's going to look, and we don't know what's going to be the catalyst for it. But it's looking more and more like we're in. If you want a smartphone, you either get an Android or you get an iPhone. Well, I think major college football is going to be that at one point. It's going to be Big Ten or SEC. That's your major college football. This true separation of the have and the have-nots. And because I think even though there's some ACC powers right now that are really unhappy and they want out of the ACC. And when they want out and those blue bloods decide they want to go to the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever it is, I think ultimately that will be the beginning of more of a separation. And I think we're going to be in like I said, an Android, iPhone era of college football where you only got 2 brands that represent major college football at the highest level. And ultimately, the resources that those schools can provide, the money that they can generate, the eyeballs, the ratings, the TV ratings they're going to generate, it's all going to lead to, hey, man, it's just Big Ten and the SEC. And everybody else will be in a separate level of college football. And nothing wrong with that. They're going to play a separate level. We still going to watch it because we love college football. There'll still be players. But think about it. Once you have that separation, even the best players from those group of 5 schools who are outside the Big Ten, SEC, once they prove themselves as really good players, transfer portal, free market, they're just going to go to the Big Ten and the SEC, where they have all the money in the NIL resources to pay them what the market says. Guys, it's already in the process of happening. It is happening, basically. And to me, when that ultimately goes down, I think that's when, what you're talking about now, that'll be the college football playoff grouping. It'll come from one of those 2 conferences. That's it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, at least at this point, under this vote, Rod, that the ACC and the Big 12 still have you can say you have a seat at the table. You got it. You're conference champions in. You're better than Notre Dame right now, which they're trying to force Notre Dame into a conference, which I think TV networks are forcing this too. They want Notre Dame in a conference. They want them because all their rivals are now in a conference, right? They're the USC, Stanford, in the ACC. I mean, these are all, Michigan, of course. So, they need to get in the conference. But either way, to your point, at least, because again, these things are political too, CJ. So, okay, you can sit back and say, okay, the top Power 4 all have a guaranteed spot and a day and a week off. The best team of the group of 5. So I can sit here today and say Texas can make the college football playoff, and Texas State down in San Marcos can make the college football playoff. If they go 12-0 in the Sun Belt and they're the highest ranked, not group of 4 conference champion, they're going to be in the playoff. GJ Kinney can sell that to his recruits. He can sell that to his team. That's a good thing. You're actually selling that. Hey, you guys, we can be in the playoff. There's nothing keeping us out of this. Well, we have to take care of our business. If we win, and go undefeated and play a commensurate schedule, we're going to be in that 12-team group. Wherever we're seated, we don't know, but at least we'll get a seat at the table. But to your point, Rod, and to CJ, those 5 are going to be set. The rest of the 7 are largely going to come from the SEC and the Big Ten. We kind of know that, right? Definitely. The teams that didn't win the conference in those 2 conferences are going to get in. I don't think the Big 10's going to, or the Big 12 is going to be getting 2 schools in very often. I don't think the ACC is going to be getting 2 schools in very often. So you'll get those 5, and then you'll get group, the second, third, and fourth place teams from the SEC and the Big 10.
Exactly. Yeah.
You brought up a good point there, Aaron. I haven't really pondered it all too much because you're focused on what is becoming, the dominant 2 conferences in this sport. But a good point here is, there's still hope for that top team in the group of 5 to make some noise. And that's going to last a long way following that one college football playoff appearance for their program. You talk about some of the biggest victories that we've seen in college football over the last couple of years. I mean, Appalachian State over Michigan, that was an all-time game. Boise State over Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, all-time game. Not as much of an all-time game, but another one that kind of fits this similar kind of mantra is Tulane just beat USC 2 years ago in a New Year's Six Bowl. It can happen. And if you find, lightning in a bottle with a guy like Michael Pratt or one of those quarterbacks that kind of flies under the radar, like a Josh Allen at Wyoming, a Blake Bortles at UCF, that just has things going for them that year, it can make for a hell of a storyline and an opportunity for, college football lore to look back on and say, that was an all-time game that we have a great moment from. And it's great to see, because if it was just the Power 2 conferences moving forward, the Big Ten, the SEC, and they just say, all right, the top 5 or 10 teams from each conference goes to this playoff, and it's just them 2 now, that takes away from that. And that's part of the college football history that has always provided great moments, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because we all understand that the TV networks, the Power 2 conferences, they want as many in as they can, but they can still at least sell the idea, Rod, that everybody has a chance. Everybody's in there. You can go undefeated in your group of 6 conferences. It's going to be now, and you can still play. And you can get a shot at it almost is their way of the underdog in March Madness.
Yes,
or the 4 seed winning the College Baseball World Series. It's probably not going to happen. I think we all understand that. And the SEC and the Big Ten are still going to get 7 or 8 teams into the 12, or 6 or 7 teams into the 12 group. But the underdog is in there. The little engine that could's going to get their opportunity. So they can sell that, politically, or however you want to put that, which is I think it's good for the big picture of college football.
No, it is good. I mean, guys, it's a TV show. I mean, let's not forget, this is entertainment. So you gotta have storylines, and Cinderella. This country loves a Cinderella story. They love the underdog. You need to have that because more and more the public understands that the free market has hit college football. And yes, it is. If it wasn't aristocracy before, man, it's about to really become a sport that separates the have and have-nots. So yeah, let the underdog, get a shot. And every now and then you'll have a really good team. That's a group of 5 team that may be able to win a playoff game or two. But yeah, I think it's more about the storyline. I think they're smart enough to know, well, we don't want the same teams over and over again. At least that'll keep it fresh because it definitely won't be the same group of 5 representative over and over again. You just point out Notre Dame. If Notre Dame just finishes anywhere, top 10, top 12, Notre Dame's in. They're gonna find a way to get Notre Dame in there every now and then, and then you'll have your runner-up in the Big Ten. Your runner-up in SEC will always make it too because they'll be highly ranked. So essentially what we're talking about is the 4 champions of your Power 5 conferences, the group of the Power 4, the group of 5 representative, that's 5. SEC runner-up, Big Ten runner-up, that's 7. Notre Dame, if they're anywhere close to the top 10, that's 8. I mean, you really only got like 4 spots you compete for.
Well, I'll say
outside of that, and that'll be Big
Ten. Interesting tweet I saw. Barrett Saleh, who covers college football, he put his projection out for what the 12-team playoff will look like under this new format. So let's go through that exercise as kind of a fun conversation. He has Georgia winning the SEC as the number 1 team in the country. Ohio State wins the Big Ten. They're the number 2 team with a bye.
Okay.
Clemson wins the ACC. They're 3 with a bye. Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 with a bye.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay. So somebody's got to win the new look Big 12. So those are your top 4. And to me, that's the really intriguing part of this is, Oklahoma State could be a couple losses, but they win the Big 12 conference. They're going to be in the top 4. Or, as we said, TCU or whoever it's going to be, Kansas State that wins the Big 12. He has Texas at number 5. There it is. That's Barrett Saleh. Good job there, Matt. So Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma State bye. Texas is playing Tulane in a 5-12 matchup in the first round in Austin. The Green Wave will be rolling in here. Oregon will play Michigan, and a heck of a game in out there in the Great Northwest. Notre Dame's in at 7, playing Ole Miss in Touchdown Jesus, and Alabama is playing Utah. This kind of puts it in black and white of what it could look like, and that's everything we just talked about. That's interesting as heck to me. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in on that. Texas hosting a. Essentially that would be because remember, the SEC championship game will be. It's not East-West anymore. Now it's going to be the best 2 teams. He's got Georgia beating Texas in kind of a rematch there because they play in the regular season an SEC title game. That go either way, but they're both, essentially 1-2, 1-4. So they're 5th. What do y'all think of that prediction and just how that would lay out as far as the TV show you're talking about, Rod?
So he's basically got the runner-up of the Big 12 too getting in. Okay, he's basically kind of how I feel. The runner-up. If you're the runner-up, you also gonna get a shot. I mean, in the college football playoff of the Power 4 conferences, he doesn't have the I don't know if he has the ACC runner-up. So there you go. So not every one of them, but I like that frame. I do think runner-ups they're going to be in most of the time from the Big 10, SEC, and he's got him from the Big 12. Like I said, if Notre Dame's anywhere close, Notre Dame's in. They in there like swimwear. You know that. That storyline's too damn good. And then Tulane's right. Yeah, I like it. It makes a lot of sense to me. I like that. That's good.
Here's my question with this is who's the biggest loser in this setup? I would have to think it's the conference losers of the Power 4 conferences that make the college football playoff. Not only are you not getting a bye, but you also have that extra game at the end of the season. You look at the 3rd or 4th team from the SEC that gets in here, they don't have that extra game. So they do essentially get their own bye before embarking on a playoff run.
That's true.
If you lose your conference championship game, and this might be by design for college football in general, and make sure that game means even more, that bye just becomes all the more important. Because if you lose that game and have to turn around 2 weeks later and start your college football trek while the winner gets to sit back for 3 weeks, that's a tough turnaround because that's another game
that raises the level of import of those. And again, back to the TV show, Rod, that raises the level of the importance of that championship game. That takes it to a whole different dynamic. You're still going to get in, but you're going to have to go play, right? You had to play a game, and it just kind of changed the equation. I kind of like that as far as a compelling storyline or talking point. I'd also say the way I understand it is the conference championship weekend will stay where it's at, which is that first Saturday in December. And then there'll be a 2-week period before the first round games, right? So there will be a week off, even if you lose the conference championship game. The team like Ole Miss or Alabama that was in there that didn't play in their conference championship game, that's the third team from a conference, they're going to be 3 weeks off before they play again, essentially. Because the way the calendar would work, it would be like December 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, where they'll play the championship Saturday. Then 2 weeks later is when they'll play the on-campus game. 2 weeks later will be the next round. 2 weeks later, and then 1 week later will be the championship game. But yes, there will be an extra week for those teams. I mean, it's compelling as heck. What was that super chat? I didn't see that. I saw it pop up, and then I didn't get a chance.
This was actually a good one. Could you imagine? Most teams, whenever they play Army and Navy, they know ahead of time that they're going to be on the schedule. Probably sometime around July or August, they start throwing together a game plan for when they get to play this triple option or wishbone team. That's something that they have been working on for months and months and months, because that's not a thing that you see regularly. You can adjust from a team that likes to go 4 wide to 3-1. That's not crazy. You see it every week in college football. Being taught, kind of thrown a curveball with having 1 week or 2 weeks to prepare for a triple option team.
That's legit.
That's not easy. That's a nightmare scenario for a number of teams, especially if you get a Navy team that has a guy like Keenan Reynolds or someone behind center who can also have a little bit of a dual threat ability to him. So that's I like that a lot, Todd. That's a fun chat.
It's a way to think.
Fun kind of hypothetical there, because that's a curveball I would doubt anybody would be expecting to see in a college football playoff on 1 or 2 week preparation.
Well, I just, I think big picture on this, Rod, and think about, the transfer portal and how the fact that you can still, if you're a top end quarterback and you're running second on a depth chart somewhere, you could drop down a level into the Sun Belt, if you're a big time player, and you could lead your team. We know how important that position is, lead your team to an undefeated season. And now you're in the playoff, right? I mean, the Army, the armed forces teams and the academy teams are interesting, but man, if you're a big time quarterback and you're running, Arch Manning, for example, he's not leaving, but just use that as an example. You could drop down to a level with a good coach that you really like and a really talented team that just is looking for a QB, and you're going to outclass your conference, right? You're going to roll the conference. So all of a sudden you could see, as we know, the blue blood programs and the top 2 conferences are going to suck up a lot of the transfer talent. But there's no reason that some of the really good players that are at that next level won't drop down to try to get an opportunity to, especially the Big 12 still has a big seat at the table, right? This could be a benefit to the Big 12 big picture, because you still have a chance to win a national championship, and you don't have to compete with, this crowded depth chart to try to get on the field.
No, I love the idea. I'm just trying to think of, what group of 5 program is most likely to be the dominant program to represent that, that level in the college football playoff year after year. I mean, because Boise State, if this was a thing, 5-6 years ago, it'd have been all of Boise State. It'd have been Boise State 10 years ago, man. They'd have been going boom every year representing that level. I'm just trying to, and this is why, I know U of H wanted to get to the highest level, but man, a program like a U of H that, back if they work at the power level in the Big 12, that's a program that always had, great coaching hires, tons of really good talent, and they're in a recruiting mecca like Houston, and they could always get top level talent. Man, I'm just trying to think of those programs. I mean, it's like TCU probably would have been that program before they got into the Big 12. TCU was a dominant, lower level group of 5 program. So I don't really know who it's going to be. It's just really interesting that those DFW area. I mean, SMU. This is a great opportunity for SMU, man.
Yeah, they're paying to be in the ACC. I mean, they're paying their way to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those programs would have had a better. Definitely. I don't know if they might have had a better chance actually at being a group of 5 representative or whatever than what they are now. Like those programs I'm representing. So I don't know. I don't know who's going to be. I don't know really who's going to be year after year.
Well, it really does make the CJ the Big 12 compelling. The Big 12, because they have that guaranteed top spot and you'll have to win 3 games to win a national championship, or at least play for one or make a run. Sonny Dykes can sell that on the recruiting trail. And there's no question about Willie Fritz down at Houston can sell that on the recruiting trail. We have a big opportunity. And then that group of 6 or group of 5 group that can roll. And that's interesting because we saw Butler do it in college basketball, CJ, where Butler all of a sudden back-to-back Final Fours, and this little tiny school in Indianapolis that's making runs. This is a storyline I don't think a lot of people think about, that there could be a team like that, as Rod's talking about, that gets a really good coach that just wants to coach ball, that's able to recruit to that and says, man, come play here. Let's go win a national championship. Let's be that team that, no one thought could win a natty. That's a cool storyline, the way this format sets up for me.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite part of this is, like you said, there's always going to be some sort of Cinderella or long shot, kind of aspect to this. And I love the idea of the G of 5 team getting in, because my favorite saying in football is, they put their pants on just like we do. And, it goes for the entire helmet, the shoulder pads, everything else. You might not have as many wristbands for whatever reason, but, for that same kind of approach to me has always made sense, because they've got to line up 11, the same that we've got to line up 11. And until you go out there and show that you can beat them, all bets are off. Anything can happen. And I really do think the Big 12 is going to be a fun conference moving forward. I think there's going to be a little bit more parity there than what we've seen. Obviously, Oklahoma went on that run of 6 straight championships in the conference. It was pretty top heavy in years past, with Oklahoma State and Baylor having their runs as well. But you look at the final rankings this past season, they had 5 teams ranked from the 10th to 23rd spots. It was Utah, Arizona, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Kansas. You add Texas Tech into that mix as well. That's a fun top 6. I mean, that's a really fun group of 6, or I guess group of 6 teams in the Big 12. That's going to be a fun conference to follow, whether or not you want to admit it or not. That's going to be good football, and it's going to be much more enjoyable football than what I think we'd see out of the ACC. That's my tier 3 or 3rd level conference right now in the world of college football. And the idea that Texas might be matched up with an old foe like Oklahoma State, Kansas State, maybe an Iowa State even. You know how many times Matt Campbell's going to go to bed praying for a chance to play Texas in a college football playoff situation. It's going to happen every single night. There's going to be dents right outside of his bed from his knees each night. So those teams are going to be looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be really, really fun. I think it's great for the sport. It's going to be exciting.
I agree with CJ, though, about the Big 12. The Big 12 has always been underrated, mostly because the Big 12 has great coaching.
Yes.
The Big 12 has been about innovation and schematic advantage for a long time. And even the NFL recognizes that, right? You just had Penn State hired an offensive coordinator from the Big 12. I want to say Iowa State just lost their offensive coordinator because the Rams hired him to be a pass game coordinator. Like K-State, hell, you just had K-State's offensive coordinator leave, and he's a guy that was coveted. And now A&M believes he's the guy that's going to lead them to the modernized offense for the most part. But whether you were talking about, Matt Campbell at one time was getting NFL love, not anymore, or you were talking about, a Lincoln Riley before he left, or you're talking about Matt Rule. I mean, the Big 12 has had a ton of great coaching and great innovation, and I don't think that's going to stop. I actually think that's kind of the lifeblood of the Big 12. It ain't necessarily talent. It's been scheme from all around the country. Everybody comes to the Big 12, going back to Mike Leach, to steal concepts and schemes. Because
it's been the cutting edge of the new era.
It's really been a defense. It's been a really progressive league in that respect, CJ. So I agree with you, brother.
Well, because they don't have the 4 and 5 star players in the SEC and the Big Ten, right? You got to do a little bit different. And Cliff Kingsbury did that too. He's an NFL coach and still coaching in the National Football League. It's a great point. 100%, because you don't have all the talent. You still got to win football games and find ways. That's a great point, guys, right there. Good conversation. I would also say for folks, because I've always seen this, you guys correct me where I'm missing this, because everybody's like 12 is too many. Right. And that's fair, because I think 4 was fun for a couple of years. People have said 6, which I don't understand how 6 would actually work. 8 is good. But I see this as an 18 playoff, because what I see is the top 4 conference champions get the bye. And then the other 8 are going to play in to try to play those teams. Right. So you're giving 7 other spots to the rest to try to play into an 18 playoff, essentially. Right. I mean, you're trying to win your way in those teams have earned it, right? They won their conference championship, right? They're Georgia, they're Texas, or Georgia, whoever Clemson was we just saw on the list. They've earned their way in. They're in, and they get a week off. You other 8 play each other to try to play them, right?
Yep.
And try to play your way into them. So I see it as an 18 playoff with kind of a play-in round that gets you there. Does that kind of how you guys are seeing this?
No, but I love
That's
that.
how I originally looked at it that way. Because in college basketball, you have a 64-team bracket, right? Except 68 teams make the tournament. There's still that first 4 game in that you got to go in and win to get into the playoff, albeit it's not, it's about a difference of 56 teams or whatever, but you're still looking at it as a way that the prize is with the 4 teams that are already there. They have that week off. They're preparing to play for what is now the semifinal and then eventually the national championship game. But to get to that point, you have to prove that you should be there, and you can't do that because you didn't win your conference or you're not undefeated. And so this is the way to do that right now. And I like that mindset of, it's an 18 playoff with, 8 other teams playing in to get in that final 8.
Yeah, Rod, those top 4 earned it, right? They won a conference championship, whether they're undefeated or not. They took a trophy. So you've achieved. And to CJ's point just now, you others didn't. You didn't win your conference. You've got to prove it. And this has always been there. Well, they should be in, and they should be in, and we should be in. Well, okay, go win a game. Go win a game.
Yeah.
Earn your way in. Now you're in. And now you're getting to the 4 that earn it get to play the 4 that earned it originally. I think that's pretty compelling.
No, I'm with you. And I like that because then we do away with, that's the whole point of the playoff, right? We do away with the discussions and hypotheticals about what would happen this and the transitive property of this team played that team and this. Oh, what about the strength of this schedule? No, not to hell with all that, man. Go win the damn game. You won the game, you to the victor go to spoils. And after that, whoever keeps winning, that's who can end up being the champion. And it allows for, fallibility. It allows for teams to, great teams make mistakes. I mean, great teams get beat. That's why they play the game. And just because you get beat late in the season, as we know, it used to be, oh man, you got beat late. That man, your season's over. You're done. Now you get a chance to potentially lose a game late, still learn a lesson, and still prove that you are the best team. I like the way it's set up, and I like the way you broke it down there too.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good way to sell it. If you're the college football industry, think about this year. Alabama lost early and still made it in.
Exactly.
Georgia lost late to Alabama and didn't get in. Under this situation, they get back in and they go win the damn thing.
Well, it was kind of like TCU. At least remember TCU a couple years ago, they lost the Big 12 title game and they still let them in and they proved them right? Because they ended up winning a college football playoff game. And I think, I was a part of a team, a great team that lost late, right? I was an 0-2 team that lost to Cliff Kingsbury and Texas Tech down in Lubbock, or we would have been in the BCS game. And I would have loved for that team to have redemption. Right, to be able to still prove, no, we were still one of the best teams in the country. We just, we weren't perfect, but we were still a great team that deserved to play for a championship. So I love now that they allow for, there's a little margin for error for great teams because perfection is tough.
You're rewarding the teams that achieved, right, won their conference, and then you're allowing the teams that did have some stumbles along the way to come back and win it. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of good storylines. That's my view of it. Good stuff, guys, for sure. All right, let's shift gears one more time here at the end of the live stream here. It's on Texas football, and we appreciate you guys being with us and viewing tonight. With Longhorns, by the way, in baseball now up 6-1 in the 5th inning. Had a big uprising there in the 4th. This is, guys, got a question for you. What do you think the outcome will be if it's just Jamal Charles had returned for his senior year? There you go. Thank you, Justin.
Wow.
Any thoughts on that? Jamal Charles, senior year.
His senior year would have been what? 07? Oh, well,
no, he left in 07, did he not? Or 06?
08. He would have been with the 08 crew. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, the team with Colt, Jordan, and Quan.
That would have been special. That group right there. Could you imagine how difficult that would have been to stop for opposing defenses? I mean,
because Chris Obanaya was a good player. But Jamal Charles, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And Chris Obanaya was awesome, guys. Chris Obanaya is one of the most underappreciated Longhorns. I have what I call I call it a 30-40 club. Guys who were able to have at least 30 rushes and 40 receptions in a season. That's my 30-40 club. In the last 30-40 years, only been two guys in that club. And one is Eric Metcalf and one is Chris Ogbonnaya. Only guys to get at least 30 rushes and 40 receptions in a season. All right, so Chris Ogbonnaya, let's not hate on that man. He done something that only Eric Metcalf's done on the 40 acres. But yes, with Jamal Charles, maybe you win the national title that year. Not maybe, you do. You win the national title that year.
Yeah. Tebow and company won it that year. They beat Oklahoma. But yeah, we all know what happened in Lubbock. But yes, I mean, gosh, you should go back and watch highlights of Jamal Charles. I covered him in real time. Rod, you saw him. CJ, you did. I mean, the highlights is one of those. Gosh, he was electric. That guy, I don't know if I've ever seen a faster player on a football field.
Guys, he has the record in the NFL all time for yards per carry. I mean, he surpassed Jim Brown to get the record for yards per carry. That's why he's got a case to get in the Hall of Fame. He's the all-time leader in the NFL in yards per carry. Come on, man.
Yeah, you don't do that by accident.
You don't do that all time, guys.
We know what happened the next year. That's incredible. Now I'm trying to think. That was Colt. Yeah, that was Colt, Quan, and Jordan.
Yeah, that was Colt, Quan. Yeah. That team was better than the 09 team. That team should have played for a national title. That team was better than the 09 team. But like I said, perfection is tough. That's a damn good team, and they still slipped up to Texas Tech. But trust me, I know how that feels. It happened to us at 02 in Lubbock. That night, crazy things happened. In that format, they got screwed over. In this format, that team probably would have won the national title.
Possibly, yeah. And if Jamal Charles is on that team, yes, I think so too.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
As far as coming back, I mean, I always consider if Vince had come back for his senior year in 2006, are you kidding me? I mean, they would have gone back to back, and he would have won the Heisman Trophy. So a lot of what ifs for sure, but good stuff right there. We appreciate that super chat. All right, guys, real quick on some NFL draft conversation. CJ, you were on a conference call today with Matt Miller, NFL Draft Scout. I want to talk about that. But Rod, you had a tweet from Jim Nagy, who is the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl.
Yep.
And that game, of course, already been played, but he obviously gets to know these players. He's very involved in that and deep into the scouting. And we all saw the videos of Tavondre Sweat, bending people backwards and blowing people up in Mobile. He had a tweet here this week that really speaks highly of Tavondre and how much Jim Nagy thinks of him.
Yeah, not just a tweet, a thread. I mean, he got on his soapbox for Tavondre Sweat, and all those videos you're referring to. He posts that. He's at Jim Nagy _SB, executive of the Senior Bowl. Here was his tweet. Quick Senior Bowl. I think he tweeted an emoji. There it is. Thank you very much, Matt. To show why Texas nose tackle Tavondre Sweat shouldn't get out of the first round. And then he goes into some detail on the thread about his rare combination of size and speed, and give the clips of what he done. Guys, I don't know if he's going to get drafted in the first round, but I do know that his position overall, and I've been saying it in the NFL, although not considered premium, those guys are getting paid. So to me, if those interior D linemen are getting paid, guys, they're getting paid at a rate higher than any other premium position on defense. You go look at the 16 highest paid defensive players last year in the NFL. 8 of them are interior defensive linemen. Same thing when you look at the guaranteed money. Half of the players making the most guaranteed money in the NFL on defense are in the interior defensive line. That's because the NFL is changing. They're playing more 2 deep coverage than they've ever played. That means 2 deep safeties, lighter boxes. You're going to play with lighter boxes. You need bigger humans that take up multiple gaps with sheer size and girth and mass, or they're so dominant inside that they demand a double team. They're force run defenders on early downs and elite pass rushers on passing downs. Can that beat Tavondre Sweat? Hell yes. He's got all the raw materials. He did it at the college level. Can he do it at the NFL level? That is the question. They see him as basically a first and second down player. They see him as a 1 or 2 down player. If he can prove that or at least pique the interest of scouts that he is a 3 down player, and that's all about his size, right? If he weighs in, too heavy, then they're going to question whether he can play every down and has the conditioning and the durability to do so. But if he comes in light and he goes out there and he tests well with the agility drills and also has good strength on the bench, they're going to go back to that film and go, man, maybe this guy is worthy of being drafted in the first round because he can change a defense if he's a force run defender, which he's elite in that quality, best in the country, but also prove that he can be an elite pass rusher when it comes to a predictable pass situation. And I think he also proved that he was basically a top 5 interior pass rusher in college football. Now, Byron Murphy was the best interior pass rusher in college football. But I'm telling you, T'Vondre Sweat is going to be skyrocketing up draft boards, guys. And it's because the way the NFL now is playing defense. They're playing with lighter boxes. You need bigger humans like T'Vondre Sweat.
Yep. Great stuff, Rod. CJ, your thoughts. And you were on a conference call with Matt Miller today. You pick up what you think and then what you heard from Matt Miller today about T'Vondre and Byron Murphy.
Yeah, no, he was gracious with his time and was able to hit on a number of Longhorns in his most recent mock draft, which went only 2 rounds deep, but mentioned 6 Texas Longhorns in those 2 rounds. He had 2 in the first round, Byron Murphy and Xavier Worthy at 32 to the Chiefs. Again, I've been pounding the drum for that. It just makes a lot of sense there. In 4 going into the second round, Jonathan Brooks, he has as the first running back off the board. Byron Murphy, he has as the first defensive lineman off the board as well. He has A.D. Mitchell going in that kind of next tier of wide receivers. He has him going 37 to the Titans. And then interestingly, he has Jatavian Sanders at 49 to the Cincinnati Bengals. So a little bit of a drop there where I think most people are expecting Jatavian Sanders in that top 35 or top 40, right inside the top 50 for JT Sanders. But I think he'd be very happy with that fall if he's able to link up with Joe Burrow and the boys in Cincy. I think that's a great fit there.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. So, Matt, any other insights from Matt Miller that piqued your thought? I mean, this guy, and I know that was a conference call for everybody, so it was a very broad conversation. But what else piqued your interest? Matt Miller, the ESPN analyst, but also the NFL draft scout.
Yeah, there were 2 things. I mean, he was asked the question by Jeff Jones, one of the local reporters down here in Austin, does a great job down in the area. He asked him essentially which of these Longhorns has the most to gain from the combine. And interestingly, Matt Miller said Byron Murphy, simply because his rise has been mostly after the season when guys have gone into the film late into the year and said, you know what, this guy can really play some football. And it hasn't been a full year of propaganda and pushing for Byron Murphy to be a first round overall pick. Now you're getting to that point where you can revert back to the film after seeing the hype and saying, oh yeah, this matches up. And so if he's able to go out, show some good tests, play well, perform well in the combine and the pro days, and then interview well, it's looking like he could gain a whole lot from what has been a strong push on social media. And then the other thing is, Rod, we've talked about it in the past, and Aaron, I know you've been here tag along as well, but the thinner crop in the back half of this draft is something that NFL GMs are already kind of keeping a closer eye on when you come to NIL to really kind of lure these kids that are on the fringe of jumping to the league and coming back to school. Right now, it's kind of hurting the NFL draft a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
He says, there's probably 300 guys worthy of being drafted. In other years, you're probably seeing around 350 names that could be in that conversation for a late pick in the 7th round. But he one point I thought that was really interesting. He said good NFL GMs plan out years in advance. They probably have a 3-year rolling idea of what each draft brings strength-wise. It's not a complete science because kids develop. Christian Jones's pop up. But you do get an idea of where the top-heavy positions are early. And as a result, you might see a team offload some of those 6th or 7th round picks that they might have for future drafts that they have coming up so that they know whenever these drafts go in the way that they go in cycles, they now have many more picks that they can load up on in drafts that are much deeper than the one that we are currently about to embark on in 2024.
No, that's good stuff. And you're right. I've seen that from several NFL scouts. Actually, Jim Nagy talked about it as well, that it's just a smaller pool of talent, period, because now you're starting to get guys who are staying in college longer because of NIL. And I think I think it may have several different effects. I think your bust rate potentially actually could decrease in the NFL, right? You got a higher bust rate because usually you don't have enough of a sample size on a player to do a thorough evaluation. So you take a chance on a player, maybe it doesn't work out. Now you're getting more thorough evaluations on players because they're staying in college longer. You got more film on these guys. So I think that may happen at the NFL level. Also, just as you point out, you'll get NFL scouts who are now trading out of their late round picks, who are now basically going to trade late round picks, future picks, so that they can get up into the middle rounds of the draft and get up into the higher rounds of the draft, because there's not enough talent for that to trickle down to the late rounds, the 5th and 6th and 7th round. Now those top 4 round picks become even more valuable than they used to be. They used to be valuable, but now they're at a premium because there's going to be a significant, precipitous drop off after rounds 3 and 4, pretty much.
Wow.
But this is great news for Texas in the year that it's not a completely, super deep draft. Texas has a deep group of guys going to the NFL Combine.
Yeah.
For guys like Keelan Robinson, Ryan Watson, Jordan Whittington, where most years you're probably not looking at a spot in the top 7 rounds. Maybe you are this year, and that's kind of the luck of the draw, but it absolutely is going to help in Texas's favor this year in terms of draft numbers.
Good point.
And I think the trend of the draft will be this, but I think this is the money year to that point because of the COVID year, right? That goes away after this year. So this is the year where it's probably the most depleted at the back end because of NIL. Juniors are staying that would have gone out typically. And you got your 6th-year seniors and those type of guys, the 5-year seniors. It's NIL and the COVID year have led to that. And it's to your point, Rod, that, to trade 6th and 7th round picks, you got to have guys that want your 6th and 7th round picks. Maybe they don't. Yeah. It may lead to more players being drafted, right? I'm not going to give up. I don't want your picks. I know what's coming in the back end of these drafts. I want a player. I mean, I want a real dude that I know can play. So maybe you see more actual player trades from the NFL to acquire those more coveted top 4 round picks. There's a cascade of conversations about that, but it leads to, hey, look, man, I don't need your back end picks. I'm trying to get rid of mine too, but I'll take your backup running back. I'll take that guy because I know he can play. You may see more players traded because of this as you're trying to fill holes, because that's what this is about. There's only a couple of ways to acquire talent in the NFL. You're either, drafting them, trading for them, signing them, or bringing them in as free agents. And, it's funny that I think you'll see cool stories to your point, CJ, about the Jordan Whittingtons, Keelan Robinsons. Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco admitted that they drafted Brock Purdy with that last pick, despite objections from his whole coaching staff, because he knew he wouldn't sign as a preferred free agent, because they already had Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. There's no way his agents let him go there because it's just not a good spot. But Kyle wanted him, so now all of a sudden you have these guys that that are going to get drafted because there's a coach that loves them or whatever it is. I think that's pretty cool. There's a lot of good storylines to that, and it's obviously the players that are staying get to develop further. They get to make a little money while they're here. And, I think there's a good argument that it's a good thing for the whole industry. You just have to evolve with it. You got to change with it, to y'all's points about how you navigate this acquisition part, because the bust rate, as you said, Rod, I think is on point as well. So interesting there. Good stuff with Matt Miller, ESPN Draft Scout. Rod, you also have a mock draft with Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network, that came out here this afternoon and this evening that has some Longhorns also featured early and often.
It's just a first round mock draft from Daniel Jeremiah, and he does great work. I mean, he's worked with NFL.com. He's got the first Longhorn off the board, seems to be unanimous with most of the mocks you see. He's got Byron Murphy going 16 to the Seattle Seahawks. I haven't seen him mock to the Seahawks yet, but he's been mocked anywhere from 13, 10 to in between like 12 and maybe 23, because I've even seen a mock to the Houston Texans at 23, but he's at 16 in Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. They talk about how Leonard Williams is a pending free agent, and the Seahawks, man, I mean, talk about identifying talent. I mean, that's one of the best drafting ball clubs in all of the NFL. John Snyder does a great job, and once again, it would show a guy that can help them right away, which is kind of what the Seattle Seahawks do when they draft a lot of young guys. They also have A.D. Mitchell being drafted in the first round here to Tampa Bay. They talk about how Mike Evans may end up leaving, and A.D. Mitchell is drafted at 26 in this mock draft from Daniel Jeremiah. Those are the only Longhorns that he has in the first round. So once again, Daniel Jeremiah, but Daniel Jeremiah loves him some Byron Murphy. He's been talking about Byron Murphy probably since December and how much he loves Byron Murphy. He's got several tweets that are basically kind of man crush tweets talking about how good Byron Murphy is going to be at the NFL level. So he loves Byron Murphy. And I say AD Mitchell is rising up draft boards. If AD Mitchell runs a fast 40, I think he's going to be a first round pick. If he runs a 4.4, which people say he can run a 4.4, even if it's a high 4.4, anywhere in that range, I think he's going to end up being a first round pick. I really do.
It's good stuff.
He
Right
certainly
there.
has the hands to back that up.
Exactly. And the film, his film is so impressive.
For my Cowboys fans, Marcus Mosher is a big name in the Cowboys community. He was going on about AD Mitchell's drop rate in college, which was minuscule when you compare it to some of the guys that are also in his same category. I think he had a drop percentage of 1.2, which was the best on the Texas roster, and it was a top 10 percentage for guys with over 50 targets or something like that this past season. So if you can back that up with what you said, Rob, with the speed, complete wide receiver.
Well, I do think it's an on Texas football conversation. But listen, to that point, we played the sounds on our show, Rod, about Bijan Robinson talking about watching AD Mitchell catch 500 balls after practice. I mean, just extra work on his catches that leads to that catch rate. NFL scouts are going to love that, right? They're going to interview him. They're going to hear about that. His work ethic, his attention to what he does. His route running shows he cares about his craft. And then the film. Then that's to your point. If he runs a 4.4-ish and shows that speed to separate a little bit, watch out. He will be a first-round pick. To your point about Tavondre Sweat, probably so, right? If he comes in lean and mean and throws nimble feet at what we saw at the Senior Bowl, he also could be first round. And I continue to beat the table. I think Jatavion Sanders could end up being in the first round, or at least in the top 35 picks because of the tight end class. He's just such a raw, talented prospect. And the drop between Brock Bowers and him and the third tight end is a long way. So if you're in this, to your point, CJ, about the rolling 3-year plan, this is a lean year for tight end. So if you're in the market for a tight end, if you're the Houston Texans and maybe you're not going to sign, what's his
Dalton
Schultz. If you're not going to, you don't agree to money with him. I mean, you may need a developmental tight end to go with Brevin Jordan. I mean, I can think of a lot of teams that are looking at that saying, look, if we're going to get that tight end, we got to do it now, or we're not going to. There's not another guy on our board. So that could, if you're at the back end of that first round thinking, man, this is, our top guys are off the board. Jatavion Sanders blows it up at the combine. He's only been playing this position for a couple of years. We got to take that because the projection there, it's the draft to me, and this whole process is about, projecting what that player will be 3 years from now. He could be special. So I think there is a chance Texas could have 4 first-round picks. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but everything we're talking about, there could be, right? Byron Murphy's going to be. Tavondre Sweat, everything you said, Rod, could be. And if AD Mitchell runs 4.4, he could be. And I think JT Sanders could sneak into the back end if, the Kansas City Chiefs with the last pick go, you know what? Travis Kelce's probably a year or two left. We can develop this young guy. And I know they need a receiver. Maybe they address that in free agency. And now JT Sanders is in the back end of the first round.
Well, Matt Miller's got Xavier Worthy, right, in the first round of his draft, too. So, the last time Texas had at least 3 players drafted in the first round was 1980. It was the year I was born. Yeah. Right. So, Texas don't have – now, they did have a run. I believe they had 6 out of 7 years from like 01 to 07. They had 2 first-round picks in 6 out of those 7 years. But 3 first-round picks, man, that hadn't happened on the Fort Acres in a long, long time. That would be quite an accomplishment to have at least 3.
Yeah. And it's going to be 3 days of fun with how many guys that they have in contention to be drafted anyway. So, a lot of fun coming in April and building up to April with the pro day.
Look, I mean, if you get
Big 12 pro day in Frisco as well.
Yeah, to mention Xavier Worthy, if you get 5 in the first 50 picks or 50 or 60 picks, that's pretty damn impressive. Without a doubt. All right, guys, that was a good time tonight. We appreciate that as we roll on. Any other super chats we need to answer there, Matt, as we get this thing wrapped up on a Tuesday night? Longhorn baseball, by the way, up 11-2 on Houston Christian. They're taking some great at-bats, and we're getting into this pitching staff. These are the important games, as we mentioned, to develop some chemistry and figure out this group as they get ready for that stretch from March 1st to March 10th, up 11-2. Right now, they'll have a 3-game series with Cal Poly. Also, remember Longhorn women's basketball tomorrow night over at the Moody Center. They've won 6 in a row since Vic Schaefer really laid into his ball club and said this is not acceptable at the University of Texas. And they've reeled off 6 straight wins, and they're playing Texas Tech tomorrow night. Guys, CJ, I know you'll be a part of Coffee and Football tomorrow morning.
I'll be on the road tomorrow morning. I'll be hitting some of the area schools tomorrow, but Jerry, Blake, and Bobby will be hitting Coffee and Football tomorrow morning as well. They'll be taking care of the live show, but I'll be out on the road. I'll have all the updates for tomorrow, my findings, whatever I come across on the trail up on Texas Football. So find me there, and
nice.
we'll continue to keep all up to date with what's going on with Texas football.
All right, Rod, you'll be back with me in the morning on the Horn in Austin, and of course on the midday there, rolling on. It's going to be good stuff. We'll talk about all these things. College football playoff tonight, a little recruiting talk. Some NFL draft. Guys, thanks a lot. Hook 'em to you as well, Mr. Burn Orangehorn. Matthew, thanks so much, and let's everybody have a great Tuesday night and hook 'em.